How'd you like to listen to .NET Rocks with no ads? Easy. Become a patron. For just $5 a month, you get access to a private RSS feed where all the shows have no ads. $20 a month will get you that and a special .NET Rocks patron mug. Sign up now at patreon.netrocks.com. Hey, welcome back to .NET Rocks. I'm Carl Franklin.
And I'm Richard Campbell.
And you probably know who we are if you've been listening to this show as long as we've been making them.
Hey, if it's your first one, welcome.
Yeah.
Where you been? We've done 1,800 and something of these.
Where were you? Episode 1,889. Can you believe it?
There you go.
And I love listening to podcasts that started like in the 2000s and brag about how long they've been doing podcasts. Yeah, we don't do that, right? We really don't.
Nah.
We just go to work and talk to people. But
we were talking the other day about, I think we may be the longest continuous running podcast in the world now.
We may be. Yeah.
It might be true.
Oh, well, that's...
that and $5 will get you a latte.
Yeah, I know. We got that going for us. Right?
Or if you're in Mexico, it's 55 pesos.
Oh, don't rub it in any more than you possibly can, my friend. Richard's in Mexico.
Yep, 2 weeks.
He's making us feel cold.
Yeah, you guys are having weather.
Although
we have weather in Vancouver.
I don't want to just talk about the weather, but man, yesterday was the first day in Connecticut here where we could actually go out on the back deck at night. It was 62 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh, good. So it broke. That's good. I'm glad. Yeah. They had snow that turned to rain in Vancouver, and we're like, we're not. Well,
Magnus Mårtensson is here. We're going to talk to him in a minute. And Magnus, if you want to jump in on this story that I have for Better Know Framework, feel free. Let's roll the crazy music. All
right, man. What do you got?
Okay, so I do this show called Security This Week with Patrick Hines and Dwayne LaFlotte, and so I'm aware. I'm more aware now of the stories that come across my desk about security, and AI is one of them because everybody's worried about AI taking over the world, of course. So this is an article from PC Magazine, and the headline is, New Malware Worm Can Poison ChatGPT and Gemini-Powered Assistants. Generative AI models aren't immune to viruses. A new worm can target AI-powered assistants and break some of Gemini and ChatGPT's security features, research reveals. Well, they're pointing to an article in Wired, and this is a really irresponsible article. I don't know what you thought, Richard, when you read.
No, that's exactly what I thought, and I was going to be annoyed with you for even bringing it up. But if you want to come at the fact that there's some irresponsible reporting coming on, I'm glad.
Yeah.
Because this is pretty irresponsible reporting.
So the article from Wired is, Here Come the AI Worms. Security researchers created an AI worm in a test environment that can automatically spread between generative AI agents, potentially stealing data and sending spam emails along the way. And okay, this is a lab experiment, right? In a controlled environment. And PC Magazine is like, hey, guess what? You're don't use ChatGPT and Gemini because you get this worm and you're screwed.
Yeah,
essentially.
There is no worm, and
there is.
And Wired is a little more reasoned about that. And actually, the piece underneath this, which is from a set of researchers, is better still, because really what they're talking about is we do need to be prepared.
Sure, we do. Yeah.
I mean, the most important part to me was the fact that it spanned OpenAI and Gemini and Llama.
Yeah.
Because that's Facebook. Because it shows this is inherent to LLMs. It's got nothing to do with any particular model.
Right. And basically, they gave it a, what did they do? They gave it a prompt that allowed it to, they basically jailbroke it, right? And it poisoned.
Jailbreak is one thing, but the bigger thing here was the recursion engine.
Yeah.
To have it generate an output that it needs to immediately respond to.
Yeah.
And then, the best answer I have to that is, don't do that.
Don't do that. Exactly.
Don't do that.
So it's like FUD, right? It's a FUD machine. So if you're on your ChatGPT channel and you've logged in and you're authenticated and you're having a nice little conversation with ChatGPT, you don't have to worry about any of this.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think they're thinking about a future where You know, the thing they also promised us with the Amazon device, which I won't say the name of just to not ruin people's day, where you were supposed to
We're done with that joke.
Yes, automatically, you know, just order me more laundry soap. Exactly. Like now you're imagining this agent doing that. And could that, if it has full authority to go make the order and complete the sale, you have a risk of exploitation. That's true whether there's an LLM in there or not.
Yeah.
And
it comes back to our least privilege argument that we've been having about computing ever since the dawn of computers.
Well, and having some gates around, okay, if you're going to write emails on my behalf, should I look at each one of them before they send? Or should we set rules of what you can send? Like, you know, you could set some parameters around that. But recursively generating code that then sends email?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I can fix that. That's 10 minutes. There we go.
Yep. Don't do that.
Yeah,
that's the lesson here. All right. Well, I wanted to bring that up
because we're in violent agreement on this one.
Yeah, we are in violent agreement, and it's a good laugh. But you know, sometimes we need to put these things in context, and you know that's why you listen.
And I want to believe the Cornell guys were working in faith. It's like, hey, is there an exploit risk here? Just to help lead folks into, we should deal with this before it becomes a problem. Right. But I'm sus on all the rest.
Indeed. Well, I don't know, Magnus, you have anything you want to add to that? I mean, Mr. Cloud Guy?
I was just listening to this and we've heard this time and again that it seems like sometimes the journalist or whatever we should call this person is so desperate to do something that they're going to write just anything, whether it's, you know, remotely true or not. And they, like you said, it's completely irresponsible. And I loathe it. It's not journalism. I don't know what that is.
Yeah. And if anybody would like cite this article on a podcast or something, and then
nobody would do that,
you know, put that in the links. Who would do that?
That's irresponsible.
That's irresponsible. Clickbait, just reprehensible. All right. Well, that's the fun way to start the show today. Who's talking to us, Richard?
Hey, I grabbed a comment off of show 1881. It's not that long ago. That's the one we did about .NET Aspire with David Fowler.
Yeah.
And the comment comes from Code Pooter, otherwise known as Richard Rukima, one of our longtime listener and occasional guest. Yeah. He lives in both worlds. And he said, I've enjoyed .NET Rocks for over a decade. Yeah, like it's longer than that. I found emails from you from the aughts, my friend.
Oh, yeah.
I can't put my finger on it, but this show really felt like the shows of old. Such great tone in the conversation with an internal results that we all need so desperately, like David. Hearing his perspective on Aspire was very inspirational as well as educational. And to be clear, this is not a diss of previous content, but this episode is a gold standard on why I listen to it.
Oh, cool.
And I was thinking about it. I know we are talking to the guy who invented the technology. I mean, admittedly, David had a team around him, and he's still trying to figure out what he's made.
Right.
You know, I saw him at NDC Sydney, and they were workshopping it and literally still trying to figure out how to describe it. So, you know, one of the things I like about that particular show is we were trying to understand what he was talking about, and he was trying to understand what he was talking about. So there's this real wrestling match about, I know you got something here, David. I just don't know how to describe it. So yeah, I thought it was a very fun show.
Definitely.
And Richard, you know, you already have a copy of Music to Code by, and goodness knows just about every other thing. But thank you so much for your comment. And if you'd like a copy of Music to Code by, write a comment on the website at .netrocks.com or on the Facebooks. We publish every show there. And if you comment there and I read it on the show, we'll send you a copy of Music to Code by.
And you can follow us on Twitter or X or whatever the heck you want to call it. But all the cool kids are hanging out on Mastodon. So follow us there. I'm at Carl Franklin at techhub.social.
And I'm Rich Campbell at mastodon.social.
And you can find all the other ways you can reach me at carlfranklin.com. But yeah, send us a toot. Rudy toot toot. Okay. Let's bring on Magnus. I'm going to formally introduce him with his latest bio. Magnus Mårtensson is an entrepreneur, a Microsoft most valuable professional for Azure since the start of the cloud, and a Microsoft regional director. He's a consultant, architect, product development lead, and he runs his own company, LoftySoft. As an international speaker, Magnus travels the world to teach, network, learn, and experience. His passions include connecting with audiences and organizing conferences such as Cloudburst and Global Azure. He is, of course, also very much into good food, wine, and great company. Except for that crap that he tried to make us drink at Ted Neward's party. I would not recommend taking that. That was my editorial. Topping all is mind sharing. So when you see him at a conference, come over and say hi. Welcome back, Magnus.
Well, thank you very much. Good of you to have me.
What the hell was that thing that you gave us at Ted Neward's party back in the day?
It's based on wormwood, so it's very, very bitter and strange.
Was it absinthe?
No, it wasn't absinthe.
It was the most vile stuff I've ever. It tasted like bile, because I've tasted that coming up out of my liver before when I was a drunken teenager.
Well, what can I say?
Ate some fairly horrible things. I remember a particular tin of fish.
Oh yeah, the soul scrubbing, but that's a different thing. Yeah,
you don't even open that inside. You have to open that outside. It'll clear a neighborhood.
But here's the thing. Magnus is like, try this. All the real men in Sweden drink this. It's good for you.
Well, absolutely, and we do. This is a thing we do when they are out hunting in the lodge somewhere, and they put this twig of the wormwood in the bottle, and then leave it there. So they're like the first few shots are pretty okay, but the bottom one is like, whoa, dude.
I think smuggled that into the United States.
I think you got from the top of the bottle, Carl. You're just so weak. So I don't know.
I guess so. I wasn't meant for the manliness of the Swedish liquor club.
It's too funny.
What can I tell you?
Yeah. So, what are you thinking about these days, Magnus?
Oh wow, I'm thinking about a lot of things. Top of mind in the community world is global Azure. Of course, it's coming up again. But overall, I'm working with enterprises of various kinds. So really helping large organizations fully adopt the cloud is a huge journey for many of them. The biggest challenge is that they don't have enough experienced people on in their teams. So they're kind of struggling to really fully get all of those promises that we hear about the cloud. It's pay per use, it's automation, it's agile, it's quick, and it's all those things. But they can't really reach it because it's hard when you don't have enough folks that can help you along the way. So that's what I do. I help them make Azure better.
How much of this is a dev problem versus a sysadmin problem?
Wow. Ooh, dude, there is a dev problem in there, but there is a huge governance problem in there,
right? Because
you just don't know what it is that you're supposed to do. You can't even ask the questions. So that's a challenge, right? So I work with teams of people, scores of people who have 20, 30 years of experience. They're really good engineers of all kinds, and they're really good at what they do, except they don't have mileage in the cloud. So they don't know which questions to ask.
I mean, no, if somebody tells you have 20 years of experience in the cloud, they're lying.
Oh no, not in the cloud. Not in the cloud. They're IT professionals.
Yeah. To illustrate not knowing what to do, I'm going to coin a new acronym: FODAR. FODAR. Fear of deleting Azure resources. Because you have hundreds and hundreds of resources. You just create one website. You've created resources you may not even know about. And you come back later and you're like, what's this? Should I delete it?
That is an excellent acronym.
It's costing me a lot of money.
You should trademark that acronym. It's amazing. That's exactly a huge problem with many of my customers, is that they don't know. And so a pretty recent study indicated by self-gauging. They asked people who consume a lot of cloud, roughly how much of your cloud spend would you say is waste? And the self-estimation was at about a third. So you got a $1 million, EA with Microsoft. 333,000 is just burning on the lawn. And that's exactly it, Carl. That they don't know exactly what they have, and they do not use the automation, and they do not use the things that you should, the things that most people know that you should be doing, except they're not doing it. And when they're not, I've found, look at this. I found this cluster of VMs here. What are you using that for? Oh, those 5 VMs? Oh, I don't know. Wow. Do we still have those?
Once.
I didn't even know. Yeah, I didn't even know 3 months ago, right? So that's 10 months of compute just burning for nothing.
Yeah. Have you ever, you could do a whole class on understanding an itemized Azure bill. Have you ever looked at one of these things?
Yeah. By the way, this week, because they keep changing the frickin' thing too.
Yeah.
Fair enough. The point is that you never should get to that position in the first place. So you should do it right. And companies again, they're coming from a world of VMs and let's order a VM means buy hardware. And that's where they're coming from. And there's nothing wrong with that, except it's not what you're supposed to be doing in the cloud. And so they transpose that thing to the cloud, and it just doesn't work.
I had an unnerving experience in Azure the other day. I went to start a VM that I use for, video recording, and it said, can't start this VM because there aren't enough resources in this region to support it. And I'm thinking, aren't enough resources? You're Azure. You've got, underwater data centers all over the world or whatever you have,
Well,
and you can't change it. So I had to just wait.
Well, the cloud is infinite for you, but it's not infinite for Microsoft.
True.
It's just
I'm throwing the sysadmin hat on this thing because I do this conversation on run ads all the time. And one of the essential issues has been, and this was, big in the pandemic, was we did this fast migration to the cloud. And when you architect an app on-prem or architect the resources for an app on-prem, you architect it for peak, right? It's the most we're ever going to consume. That's what I'll buy, even though it may represent 1% of the utilization, but that 1% is probably the most profitable point. I don't want it out. And if you architect that way and throw it into Azure, you're spending a ton of money on wasted resources.
Yeah. Absolutely right. And that's a terrible way to do it. So the migration wizards that Microsoft have been working on for quite some time now, they're getting better and better, more and more sophisticated. They're actually doing a fair job. So long as you deploy a bunch of agents inside of your network first, you let them be there for a while and listen to the traffic and see what's what. And then you process that data, and then you can right size, as they call it, when you migrate to the cloud and say, I want to use this. I want to use this size of thing instead in the cloud because that just makes more sense. And then just right sizing is a way of making sure that you just don't move it like 1-to-1 to the cloud and then waste a lot of money.
And I love that idea that, hey, we don't know any secrets here. We need to watch you.
Yeah.
So load up these tools and let them run. And again, if you're a dev, probably listening to this show, you have to ask IT, hey, let's deploy these agents into the network, which is not going to make that person happy.
True.
That's going to be a battle. But the alternative is worse, arguably.
We had to do a security review and things like that before that was allowed in the network of a large customer, public sector, again, that I'm working with right now. And so after having done all of that, all the due diligence and figured out that this is not going to steal our information or anything, then that was allowed. And we're migrating in the size of like 800-900 VMs is the first migration step.
Wow.
Just move the things first. And that's not the biggest thing we've ever seen, but it's sizable for sure. And move that to the cloud to begin with. And that's kind of when the work starts, because the migration wizard is basically automation. So now we have moved them. Now we have lots of servers running in the cloud. Now is where the work actually begins. To migrate some of those workloads off the machines that they're running on. They could be like just, hey, we're running a SQL server on a VM. Well, dude, why? You could use a database service, same thing, except no VM that you know of.
The problems aren't always our fault, right? But usually there's something that we can do to remedy the situation. But one of the problems that I had recently was that Microsoft was changing the IP address of a web app on me without telling me they were going to do that. Had no notification except that, somebody tweeted me and said, hey, this site's down. And when you go and look, that IP address, the A record is different. And so, I
guess
have to fix it in DNS.
It's not a common problem, but
I wrote a little PowerShell app. I know that I can fix that in another way, but in the meantime, I have this PowerShell app that I wrote that runs against .NET Rocks and other websites that I have and tests for content that I know is going to be there.
Yeah.
And so that's running once an hour and just in a script on my machine.
Yeah, well, that works. It's
emails me way. If .NET Rocks is down. Yeah, that's one way. I'm sure there are other ways, but you use the tools that you know before you dive into the tools that you don't know.
Yeah. Well, nowadays we have enterprises and things that are ready to move to the cloud. Again, it's weird for someone like me who has been in the cloud since the very beginning. Means I have, well, not the 20 years of experience. That's going to be hard, but at least the 10 plus now, right?
Yeah.
And now I am talking to companies that have never touched it because, reasons, because compliancy, because of, it's public sector and it's been difficult and we haven't been able to move.
Right.
And now they're getting there. And they're moving into this huge enterprise grade platform, which has everything and everything extra. When we started using Windows Azure in the beginning, as it was called, Windows. It was called Windows in the beginning, right? It had like 5 services. That was it. That was all you could do. No VM even. You only had hosted service was the only thing you could do. So it's really interesting to see these people who are coming into this now and haven't been part of the journey.
Right. It's harder for them, I think.
I mean, there's an upside to being in early that you got to see the pieces built, although you also went through all the convulsions of them getting rid of old services because they made new ones.
Yeah.
At the same time, like coming in new now with stuff like those migration wizard things seem to make life easier. But you ever look at the portal? Like, that's a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of stuff.
Oh my God.
It is
all
overwhelming.
The stuff. It is overwhelming, and I'm so surprised at the questions that you get, the comments that you get, because obviously I've lost that perspective. I know how the sausage was made, how the cookies were baked. I know all of it. I know why Azure Monitor is working the way it does.
You know how the wormwood was mixed, my friend.
I know exactly how the wormwood was mixed, and it was strong.
It was very strong.
Very, very strong it was. Yeah,
it's good to be able to lead them through that, but it definitely, I feels like it's a better time now. There is a whole conversation going on around repatriation of people taking stuff back out of the cloud.
Yeah, I've heard a couple of cases of that, and some kind of notable that somebody like wrote up a post about it and said, hey, we were going to use the cloud and we started doing this, and then we just realized how expensive and crazy it was, and we just moved away again. It's like, okay, when I look at that, I go like, okay, so it's my specific expertise to help companies just make the cloud better. Okay, so I'm looking at what you're doing, and I just realized that you did not approach this in a responsible way. You did not approach it in a learning way. You didn't have the people to do this, and now you're like finding that it's not pay per use, it's not optimized, and it's costing you too much, and it's not secure, and all the things that you're saying that it's not. It's because you didn't do your homework, and now you're backing out. Now you're backing out and blaming the cloud. That's not fair. I mean,
I was trying to work through reasonable. That seems the most likely scenario. You shipped a bunch of VMs up in the cloud. Oddly enough, they cost money.
Surprise.
Yeah, and so now you're going to ship a bunch of VMs back out of the cloud again. Where moving up to services and all those other options, you could have tuned this better. But I'm trying to find better scenarios. I mean, one would argue if you're running a 24/7 NOC, if you already have round the clock sysadmins and so forth, you more or less could be operating your own cloud. So why are you using somebody else's?
That's fair.
The rest of the arguments become so much harder. Like, I'm just trying to figure out what the cloud isn't good at that you could point at a service and go, yeah, maybe that's better to keep on-prem.
I don't know. I mean, if it's the only thing I come down to is if the service has, very, very strict restrictions on data governance and where you can host it and where you can run it. Yeah. But that's not a feature. That's a
And I feel like Microsoft has done a huge amount of work on that. Like, if all you got to do is search when it comes down to, I need to comply with this set of regulations for this country. They already have the certifications in place for it.
Yeah. Yes. And they support a lot of the services today support such things as bring your own key and so forth, right? So you have your very own key that no one can decrypt, not even Microsoft. So it's encrypted with your key.
Except Doris, your secretary, because you left it on your desktop.
Oh yeah, post it underneath the desk.
Yeah,
exactly.
And therein lies the bigger joke, which is arguably, like, I have seen a small third-party data center get raided by the FBI because of one of their customers, and the FBI took all of the racks. And so I had a customer that was in there, and their machine, they would get their machines back 2 years later.
Wow.
But in the meantime, they're out. The court order, the judge didn't understand the ramifications of what they were doing. They cleared that building. You can't do that with a cloud data center. Nobody's got enough forklifts,
right. Yeah.
just physically getting access to that data center.
Are those machines going to be even worth anything in 2 years? That's another question.
That was the thing. It was largely the destruction. It was the destruction of the business if we couldn't replace them. Right?
That's crazy because of one customer.
Wow.
Yeah.
And terrible.
So, in that sense, I said, the upside to the cloud is go ahead, knock yourself out. It's just at that scale, that's not possible.
Agreed. But we were there before before such time where companies were legitimately they were saying that we can't go to the cloud because it's not secure enough. We don't know that it's secure. We haven't seen the evidence of that. We also don't know that it's compliant. That was like a blocker, an adoption blocker in the early days. Nowadays, people go to the cloud because it's more secure. And nothing you ever do is going to change that.
And arguably it always has been. It's just that now you can't deny it.
Yeah. True. Fair enough.
Yeah. And we used to say that, do you think that your security team, who actually goes to bed at night and works 8 hours a day, is more vigilant than a team of hundreds of people that are watching what's going on behind the scenes in Azure 24/7? There's just no way.
It's not possible. There's no way. And somebody was saying, it's funny, there was a networking company that was saying that, well, basically this slur that networking from Microsoft, well, it's not the best product. It's not, I don't know that it's the most secure and so forth. I was like, are you shitting me? You just pull that out of the air. You're talking about the company that probably has the most of network of anyone on the planet with like the best teams that do networking and networking security that even exists at all. Mm-hmm. And you're just blurting it out there that you think that their product is not good enough based on what, dude?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear your analysis in detail.
Yeah,
please have it on my desk by 9:00 tomorrow morning.
Yeah, exactly.
Phasers on stun, Kirk out.
But but it is without a doubt an extremely hard problem.
Yes.
And gentlemen, we should stop at this moment for this very important message. And we're back. It's .NET Rocks. I'm Richard Campbell. That's Carl Franklin.
Woohoo!
And we're talking to our friend Magnus Mårtensson about his work in the cloud. And you mentioned it briefly at the top, but certainly the Global Azure event is a thing coming up in about another month, right? It's in April.
Yeah, April 18 through 20 is what's happening this time, and it's been going on for a while now. It's Global Azure is a thing. Global Azure.net is a thing that has been around for quite some time. And what it really is it's been more than 10 years, but it's been 12. Yeah. It's crazy. So really what it is, it's I guess it's instigation on learning instigation on a global scale, if you will.
Right.
We just hang out together and run this event, everyone at once. And everyone is any organizer of a community meetup anywhere who wants to learn about Azure. They simply just register their event as well on the same site. Nice. And the idea is that they can then benefit, and their attendees can then benefit from the shared sponsorships that we get. For example, from Microsoft, we get Azure passes from Microsoft, and if they need some, they can get them through us. So we just do it all at the same time.
Nice. And it does speak to, I think, a huge topic here, which is learning to right size the utilization of Azure to get out of the VM world and into the services world and into could be a platform piece, like the rethinking of the way you provide services to your company.
Absolutely right. We didn't even know what we were starting when Global Azure did start. We had no idea what was going to happen or what we found, if you will. They say that innovation is just taking two pre-existing ideas and combining them in a new way that no one ever thought of yet. So I guess we did community and the globe. Because we just said, hey, how about you guys do an event at the same time as we do? And then more and more people like, hey, you also want to join? And you, and you. And I posted that thing internally at Microsoft for the MVPs. There is an alias called for Azure MVPs. I posted it there and I said, hey, a bunch of us are doing this community events on this one day. You want to join? And kaboom, it was like a an understatement. I think it was like almost 100 locations the first year we did it. So apparently we found a potential that nobody knew would be there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool.
Resident noise. So how big is it now?
Well, it took a huge bump during the pandemic.
Oddly enough,
is actually, it's an important topic to cover. That community took a huge, whack on the head, and a lot of people just stopped doing community, and there weren't enough other people coming into doing community because you were simply not allowed to have meetups.
So the in-person community ground to a halt.
Yeah. But just before 2019 was our largest year, and that year I think we were around 336 locations at the same time.
Wow,
which is huge. I don't know of any larger community event than that. And one thing that I find is amusing is if you would aggregate all the community events of the same kind that are called global something, boot camp. There's AI, there's DevOps, there's plenty of them. Even a couple coming out from Microsoft that are using the same naming standard. We were the first ones to ever do a global something boot camp. Global Azure boot camp, as it were.
Right.
And nowadays, there's tons of them doing the same kind of thing. So I guess we showed to the world that it is possible to do community activism on a global scale. And now kind of everyone does that.
Yeah, I'm thinking .NET Conf, which is very much around the world kind of thing. But I do think it came after the Azure Global.
Yeah. Well, it's fun.
It's not a new idea, though. I mean,
no.
The internet kind of encourages us to do that,
Yeah.
It really does.
Well, you think about the original RDs in the 90s doing the simulcast events, right? Really before the internet was even up for that.
I was going to say, except no internet, yeah.
That was when we had regions and we directed something.
Weird. Yeah. Those funny titles of ours. Yeah. What's up with that?
Yeah.
I do think the interaction between the sysadmin and the dev around right-sizing resources here about, that, because on one hand, I know as the sysadmin, hey, these VMs are running all the time, but they're not actually busy. Like, how does this break apart? But you've got to interact with the dev to say, can you give me a measure to know when to dial something down, when to dial it up, like when or what we can move to a service.
And so you're thinking, I think, mostly about things such as, CPU or utilization or those kinds of things. I even include a third role in this conversation normally, and I say that it has to start there. It has to start with what the business people wants to measure. What actually is a measurable something for the industry for what we are doing? Is it number of sales? Is it a number of users? Is it what is it that makes the day for the business owner in this context? And I always say that you start by measuring that. You don't put anything out there. You don't put anything in the cloud unless you have a measurement that satisfies that, what the suits, the bean counters, the Excel people, what they are asking for. That's what we really want to see. And if we can have that on a dashboard in the beginning.
Right. Yeah. Like arguably before the workload moved would be nice.
Exactly. That would be the best. That would be the absolute best. And then we can actually see that trend line over time and they can understand. And that I think is the most important. And of course, then comes, CPU percentage and memory usage and other things that are.
Yeah. But I appreciate that, those are very abstract measures where, time, cost of transaction, value of transaction, like those kinds. I did a lot of e-commerce work.
Yeah.
We made the dashboard that showed when the website was faster, we made more money per customer.
Yeah. Which needle is it that moves the business? That's what we want to know that.
If I can get a CFO excited, I can get more budget.
That's correct. And also you won't have that surprise conversation in the future where it's like, why is Azure costing this much? We didn't think it was going to cost this much. Oh, we're backing out of the cloud. We're moving away. This is not what we expected.
Well, I also feel like we did not measure stuff on-prem well.
That's true.
The side effect of Azure is you are getting a monthly bill that varies.
It is.
Utilization.
And and it's hard because we have been taught for decades that IT is a budget item. It's a huge cost center on the budget. There's like this many millions, and that's it. And now there's no more conversation between the business and the IT until next year. We're going to have the same conversation once, and it's really weird. And that's exactly how the cloud does not work.
Yeah, maybe that's the real issue, Magnus, is that when I was directing IT, I had an annual conversation with finance about our spend for the year.
That's right.
And occasionally you'd go in for exceptions because, hey, we're making this big push and I need to get a few more machines and it's got a 2-month lead time. But that was an exception.
Yeah.
But I had 1 year and typically 4-year horizons. Like, we're going to renew the data center contract. We're going to buy new hardware. And these were 2 comma spends, right? Like, they were big budget spends. So you would sit in the boardroom with the finance guys and hammer this stuff out.
Yeah.
And we'd look at leasing deals and all these other things. And all of that goes away with the cloud in exchange for a monthly bill that, kind of like your cell phone bill, can surprise you.
Yeah.
What do you mean when I turn on my phone in Bangalore, it costs $5 a minute?
And good luck trying to decipher it. How well does Azure Advisor help with this kind of thing? And do you use it? And what is it?
So I use Azure Advisor to look up the recommendations that are in there. It's like saying, there are things like, okay, you seem to be running a lot of virtual machines. Would you maybe consider using a reserved instance plan instead? And make sure, like, are you going to keep these machines for a year? Are you going to keep them for 3 years? Does that look like a thing you might do? Well, then here's a recommendation that says you should be buying a reserved instance plan to get a really, really big discount if you do. But that really, it sounds like such a technical question, right? But it really is not. This is a very, very interesting question that I've been using for quite some time to illustrate what the problem really is. So you're saying, it sounds like I can just say next finish on this dialogue, and all of a sudden I have this great discount because I now bought a reserved instance plan. Wonderful. Okay, so now I just spent a couple of $100,000 doing that because we had many machines. Maybe I should ask, the business people first. And now it becomes this question of, are we going to continue using VMs as in infrastructure services, or are we actually going to migrate the applications away from those VMs and put them on platform services instead? That conversation, are you going to have that with a bunch of people who are business people and IT people? Well, now you have to talk to the devs. Are the devs ready to actually move them out of the VMs, the applications, that is, right? And that strategy is a much larger conversation than the question of, should I activate reserved instances?
Yeah, you're right. But it also makes more sense because I should have the finance guys in the room at that point. I should have Dev in the room. Now we're going to make a schedule. Hey, here are all the apps that are all running in VMs right now. We can do 1 a quarter.
Yeah.
So these ones that are 10 down the line, you can start buying years of reserved instances for them, lowering their cost.
For sure. For sure. For some of
the other ones.
Absolutely, 100%. For some of them, it is not even worth it to, that application. It's not so important. It's not that expensive. And rebuilding it
to move off of it than fix it. So
forget about it. That's not, we'll just leave that one. But
the other problem here is, Magnus, it's getting those guys in the room. Like, so often we're doing our own job and not recognizing that this is a strategic conversation where all the players need to be in the room and making a plan.
Well, do you know which person we haven't called out yet? And I would argue that this is the most important person to have in the room for this conversation. You want to know? The human resource director.
Interesting. What?
Yes.
I only call HR when I've got problems.
That's right. But you have a problem, but you just don't know it yet. The problem is that you don't have enough people with enough skills in Azure. You have wonderful people in your business. They work there for a long time. They know their stuff. They know IT. They know dev. They know all that. But they just don't know how to make an optimized, secure, compliant deployment of your application in the cloud.
They are a problem factory.
That's exactly. You have a factory pattern. Now you have 2 problems, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So, that means that you have to have a solid plan for either acquiring skilled people. Good luck with that. The people who are really skilled with cloud stuff, they already have a job. But you also, they're busy. And then you have to also include, the training or retraining or upskilling or changing the skill of your existing people so that they will understand how to actually use the cloud in a good way.
I mean, I do debate the value of training, getting skilled in migration, because that's going to end.
Yes.
In X many years.
No.
It's operations that you want to be skilled in.
Operations, governance, the security and compliance pieces that are going to be so important. Maybe you didn't know that to begin with, that compliance was going to be important because you didn't realize. And then much later, you have an application running in the cloud and your customer says, we need to be compliant with so-and-so. Are you compliant with so-and-so? Otherwise, we can't buy your service. And now compliance is very important, but it wasn't before. So now we have to go fix compliance after the fact.
Is there any AI that Azure has, or maybe even ChatGPT, that can help us find problems and correct them?
It's getting to that point. You can't release anything from Microsoft right now except going through like this AI wash first, right? Is it AI enough? If it's not AI enough, they can't
release AI on it.
I know. I mean, at the simplest level, you could ask ChatGPT here. Tell me how to get a list of resources that haven't been used in the last 6 months and help me deactivate them.
Yeah, but imagine having a complete AI engine inside of your governance in your cloud usage.
Yeah, I'm not so sure I want that.
You'll ask it, hey, dude, what can how can I optimize my cost? And it's going to base that on your utilization, your usage, and it's going to base it on the experience of the entire usage of everyone using the cloud.
That I would like. I would like something to tell me what to do when I ask a question. But as we discovered in the Better Know Framework story, you don't want something that just has agency and is going to go do things on your behalf without you being involved.
No.
That's not what you're talking about, I guess.
No, I'm talking about just help me figure this out.
Right.
What am I doing wrong? Or why this application seems to be down. And then this also comes back to this age-old question of what is an application in the cloud? If you have, my application consists of 25 different resources in multiple different, locations around my subscriptions and various things. I want to be able to see that thing as one application because to me, it is one.
So what is this wonderful AI you're talking about?
Well, it's getting to it. I mean, Microsoft is getting to it. They're working all of these things into their existing services. They're taking all the services that they had and just adding AI to them, if you will.
Yeah, I would think that Azure Advisor will have an LLM in it sooner or later. Yeah, probably sooner.
Yeah, and Azure Monitor and this has been a while coming. You know that there was this Azure Graph thing that you could have. Yeah, so Azure Graph is just a little graph that explains all the resources, all the things you have. So that's one step in that direction. But Microsoft is now taking multiple steps in that direction. I believe over the next 6 months is going to be an exciting time for monitoring Azure.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I do think it's going to evolve, but I appreciate that probably they're not going to introduce new tools. I mean, heaven help me if they do. But rather take the tools that we already supposedly understand and add more LLM to them here and there.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to get, I'm sure.
I'm certain. There's plenty of evidence to show that they're doing deep level. Like you look at some of the stuff that Sentinel's doing this day and its ability to look across multiple logs and events and so forth and say, hey, there's some unusual behavior here as a composite of that view. That's a good summarizer engine.
Yeah, it is. And that argument is what we have been using for a while to talk about, for example, security in the cloud. Why is why are the huge cloud giants so good at security? Well, it's because they have a data pool of security data, which is larger than anyone's.
Yeah.
You might be on your business, your tiny little business, which you think is huge, is very small in the cloud, and it's being attacked right now, except you can't see that based on the data you have. But Microsoft can see the attack on you and attack on other people as a larger pattern. And they can tell you, listen, this thing here that you don't perceive as an attack is in fact an attack.
Right.
And that, is why you want to have the power of that information size, that data size. And if you put an LLM on that, then you have something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have some interesting things. So I am looking. It will be interesting to see what's going on. Of course, we're recording this just before the MVP Summit.
Yes.
So you and I are going to be there, I think, Magnus.
We will. Yes, we will.
I know there's some briefings along these lines that we're not going to be allowed to talk about.
Right.
But, clearly there's motion there. This, last year seemed like the hype cycle for LLMs, especially from Microsoft with the Copilot of all the things. I'm hoping that this is the year that we see a bunch of implemented stuff that can make our lives better.
Yeah. Yeah. You get a Copilot. You get a Copilot. Everybody gets a Copilot.
At one point, I was poking some friends inside of the company. There was like, there's 180 of these, and most of them should not see the light of day. And it's like,
oh my God, no.
Yeah, but I can
that's
see
what
why.
I'm saying. I can see why as well, but that's to that point. It feels a little bit in the beginning here, which is where we are in the beginning of the Copilot era, is that some of these are so bland, or they really can't do anything yet. That it's just like, if you're going to release a new version of whatever you have, it's going to have AI and a Copilot in it, or you're not shipping. So they're like shipping this tiny little thing that they call a Copilot for whatever, and it can't do anything yet.
Yeah. But one of the reasons I mentioned Aspire at the top of the show is it's about cloud native behavior too. Like, I'm hoping that our tools as devs get better at thinking, helping us fall into cloud thinking.
Yes.
Hey, it's not just that I identified that these are secure related strings or special tokens and so forth. Is that I'm also, pushing towards Key Vault, or where is the secure store for this that we can read against, like that sort of cloud native behavior, so that we tend to do the right things when we're building software.
That's right. That's right.
Well, I can't wait to see what happens.
I hope so, because I don't know that it's true yet.
We'll see. We'll see. I think it will be true, because it seems like an actual good use case of LLMs.
So I saved the most important question for last. What flavors of ice cream does LoftySoft serve?
It serves. Definitely observes. It serves chocolate.
Chocolate, nice. I really can't pick on you for a crazy name with a name like Pwop.
Yeah. Where are you going to go with that?
But I applaud your, being funny there with LoftySoft. It's kind of a funny sounding name, but you won't forget it.
It is fun. It's kind of. Well, I just wanted to buy a domain that had .com at the end and wasn't too expensive.
There you go.
It's not a bad reason.
You get the name you can get.
Yeah, exactly. And people be like, Lofty, does that mean that because you're doing things in the cloud? And I'm like, yeah, sure.
That's exactly what it means.
That was what I was going for all along, actually, yes.
Oh, the truth is out, Magnus. Now we know.
Yep.
Yeah. And how are them meatballs at home?
Oh, the meatballs.
When was the last time Jessica whipped up a batch of those?
So they're good as ever. You should pop over.
I'll be right there.
It's been a long time since we've done an ORDEV. This all started at an ORDEV, right?
Yeah, that's where we met.
Yeah. Now we're keep seeing each other at every freaking conference around the world, I guess.
I would go to ORDEV just to attend, to go to the Bishop's Arms, and to come over for meatballs. I would do that.
Yeah. There you go. Well, I'm happy to have you.
It's just we kept doing it in October and November when it's freaking cold.
That's terrible. That's when you drink the wormwood, my friends.
Sorry. I don't know if they serve that at the Green Lion, but I'd rather have scotch.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Those are good bars.
So is there anything else you want to talk about before we jump off?
I mean, so I'd really looking forward to the next steps on the cloud. And I guess we kind of already covered that. But I think that the New Horizons scenario is just to continue to make it easier for people to get it. And that's hard when you keep adding new things all the time. And I think though that we are at a place now where the cloud is, it's hard to say it's stabilizing, but I think it is. And
it seems to be.
It seems to be. And a challenge now is that now everyone is talking about AI. Okay, cool. We love AI. AI services are cool. AI services are great. I get it. Where are all the AI services running? They're running in the cloud.
Right.
So what a company, and this is kind of a cautionary tale here, what a company really needs to understand is to use AI services with, we're going to put, all of our massive amounts of data, and we're going to do our own Copilot and whatnot, we're going to run it on our own data and so forth. Oh, that's good for you. Except you now realize that you have to understand how to use the cloud platform as well, because you're moving petabytes of data into the cloud now, and there's security and governance and data transport and all the things and costs. But the conversation right now seems to be all about AI and how cool AI is and how we're going to use that. Well, guess what? There's a platform underneath called Azure that you may need to look into as well. So that's kind of a cautionary tale here in all that AI excitement, is that you actually need to understand the platform.
Yep. Well said.
Fair enough.
Sure.
Magnus, thanks. It's been a pleasure catching up with you again.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right. We'll talk to you next time on .NET Rocks.
.NET Rocks is brought to you by Franklin's Net and produced by Plop Studios, a full-service audio, video, and post-production facility located physically in New London, Connecticut, and of course in the cloud. Online at pwop.com. Visit our website at dotnetrocks.com for RSS feeds, downloads, mobile apps, comments, and access to the full archives going back to show number 1, recorded in September 2002. And make sure you check out our sponsors. They keep us in business. Now go write some code. See you next time.
Got transmitter banned by the FCC. Yes, I'm a